welcome back to my channel. Before we begin, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my subscribers, all of my viewers, for the likes, the comments, everything. I really do genuinely, truly appreciate it. This is day 16 of Vlogmas, and before we begin and get into this video, I want to just say there's going to be a lot of spoilers after House of the Dragon, leading up into A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I will not go past what we know in the story of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm just going to focus on mainly the characters, but there will be spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, maybe this isn't the video for you, but there will be spoilers. I'll try not to do too many spoilers, but there are going to be spoilers. Now, the main reason I'm doing this video is because we're asking the age-old question: how many Targaryens are too many Targaryens, right? So when we look at the linear line of the Targaryen reign, they ruled for 300 years. They had their ups, their downs, their mountains, their everything. It was a mess. It was a mess from beginning to end. But there were those like stable, peaceful moments here and there in between. You had Aegon and his two sisters. Oddly enough, they only each gave him one child, one boy, well, two boys, one from the other. So he had no daughters. Then Aenys, his firstborn son, had 5 children. And out of those 5 children, 4 of them had dragons. And then we get to Jaehaerys. And Jaehaerys had 13 children. Now, that number just seems insane. However, when you think about it, Jaehaerys was the second-born son, the second-born son out of 3 boys. And then Aenys had 3 boys and 2 girls. Aegon the Uncrowned, who was killed by his uncle. Viserys was also killed by his uncle Maegor. And then Rhaenyra, Alysanne, and Jaehaerys. Now, it's funny because I was thinking about this as I was coming up with this video. Visenya wanted Maegor to marry Rhaenyra when Rhaenyra was born, because she was the firstborn son of Aenys. Aegon, the king, said no. Aenys said no. Like, everyone was just, no, that's not going to happen. And yet, when Maegor became king in 44 AC, he ended up marrying Rhaenyra anyways. And a lot of things happened between those 2 time periods, which is interesting. Like, Visenya wanted it to happen, and everyone was screaming no, but it eventually did happen anyways, which I think is very interesting. But Maegor didn't have any children. Aenys had 5 children, and only 3 of those children outlived everybody. Jaehaerys and Alysanne had 13 children. So that's a lot of Targaryens, but he was very selective about who he gave dragons to. He gave dragons to Aemon, who was his firstborn son and heir. He gave a dragon to Balon, who was his secondborn son and the spare. And he gave a dragon to Alyssa, who was his firstborn daughter. That was it. But he had 13 children, so he could have given dragons to everybody, but he didn't. He was very selective. And the Dance of the Dragons is the reason why he was selective. He kind of foresaw that happening. If all these Targaryens had all these dragon power, it'd be a problem. And then he had more girls than he did boys. 1 boy became a maester. 2 of his sons died, passed before him. And then everybody else was basically girls. And then the boys that he did have later on didn't really outlive him. He outlived them. So he was smart in not giving the girls dragons, because if they married into House Stark, House Lannister, House Hightower, House Redwine, House Greyjoy, any of the other houses, that would have been dragons in that family line. And the dragons for the Targaryens was their main firepower, literally. But then Viserys comes along. Now, it's interesting that even though Jaehaerys had 13 children, none of his children sat on the Iron Throne, which is sad, but also like, how? How do you have 13 children, but none of them sit on the Iron Throne? Aemon died in battle. Way to go out. Balon died of appendicitis. Vagon was a maester, so he couldn't become heir, and they weren't going to pass it to a woman. Alyssa died in childbirth while giving Balon more children. Like, it's just a mess. And Viserys comes along, and he's got Rhaenyra. Cool. But then he marries Alicent Hightower, and he has Aegon, Aemond, Helaena, and Daeron. And instead of being selective like his grandfather was and only giving certain people dragons, he gave them all dragons, like he was Oprah on the Oprah Winfrey Show, giving everybody cars. Everybody got dragons. Aegon had 2 children. They also got dragons. Rhaenyra had 5 boys and a stillborn daughter, and they all got dragons. Daemon had 2 daughters. They had dragons. It was a lot of people having a lot of dragons, which led to the dance, which is where we are come season 3, June, I think, I hope, of 2026. We see even the end of season 2, it's just a mess. The end of season 1, it was a mess, and season 2 was just a disaster. So now we skip forward from 133 AC to 209 AC. The dragons have, spoiler alerts, if you know what happens after the Dance of the Dragons, cool. If you don't want to know, then I'll see you guys later. The dragons have died out by this point, and there's a lot of Targaryens now. Come the reign of Daeron II, there are a lot of Targaryens. King Daeron has 4 boys, and 3 of his 4 boys have children. Balon has children. Rhaegal has a child, I believe. And then Maekar has children. There's a lot of Targaryens. And I don't know if you remember, because it seems so long ago, back in, I believe it was season 5 of Game of Thrones, Maester Aemon says to Jon, a Targaryen alone in the world is a dangerous thing. However, how many Targaryens is too many Targaryens? We've seen 3 instances where it's a lot of Targaryens of war, and we're picking up in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms right after the Blackfyre Rebellion, where Aegon the Unworthy looked at his distant relatives and was like, they only had 13 children? Oh, hold my beer. I'm going to give him more. And he had a plethora of them. And so, how many Targaryens are too many Targaryens? I'm going to show you something that I did. It was really, really cool, and I had a really fun job doing it. I'll show you the Targaryen family tree. However, this is the Targaryen family tree from after the Dance of the Dragons, so spoilers, up until A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So if you don't know what happens after the dance and you don't want to know the line of succession after the dance, then, but if you do want to know and you want to be spoiled, I can honestly do the family tree in my sleep. from Aegon the Conqueror all the way down past Game of Thrones. Honestly, it's so much fun. So let's check out the family tree. And before I show you the family tree, I don't know if you'd remember season 1 episode, I believe it was 5 of House of the Dragon, when Viserys shows Rhaenyra the dagger with the Valyrian written on it, and the inscription reads, "From my blood will come the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire." Now, looking back and looking at what Game of Thrones did, that honestly doesn't mean much. However, that did actually mean something. So let's look at the family tree. So I'm only showing you guys the direct line. I'm not going to show like Jaehaerys and his 13 children. I'm just going to show the direct line all the way down to where we are, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, this is your final warning, because I'm going to get into spoiler territories right now. So here we go. So we got Jaehaerys. Oh, let's focus that. We got Jaehaerys and Alysanne, who had Baelon and Alyssa. They end up marrying each other, and they have Viserys and Daemon. Viserys marries Aemma Arryn, who was actually his cousin, and they have Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra does eventually marry Daemon, who was, yes, her uncle, her father's brother. They have Viserys II. Spoilers. Viserys II has Aegon IV. We know him as Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon the Unworthy has Daeron II, but he also has Brendan Rivers. So these two are half-brothers. This is where we pick up in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Then we come down here. We'll meet Baelor and his sons Valar and Mataris. We might see Aerys, we might see Rhaegal, and we will definitely see Maekar. Maekar has Daeron, Aerion, Aemon, and Egg, also known as Aegon. So, when Viserys told Rhaenyra, or Rhaenyra read, "From my blood will come the prince that was promised," it was literally true, because from her, we get Viserys, we get Aegon IV, we get Daeron II, and from Daeron II and one of his children and or grandchildren, the Targaryen line continues. Like I said, I will not go past this, but honestly, I could, and it would be a lot of fun. But I won't spoil it for you guys. Oh, one more thing before I let you guys go, because this is a longer version than I anticipated. However, I've enjoyed it so much that it doesn't seem that long. Reading back through A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, because it's 3 books, short stories in one, and it's really, really nice. I've had a genuine fun time reading it. Of course, the series of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms over the seasons that we're going to be getting, there are, from this timeline, 1, 2, 3 people from A Night of the Seven Kingdoms novella that are alive in A Game of Thrones. There's another person I'm thinking of. However, that's going to spoil it for after A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I don't know how far along they're going to go with that story. But this person plays a very pivotal role in Game of Thrones. However, they were alive after A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and they're still alive come Game of Thrones. And chronologically, looking, I can visualize and see the family tree in my head from the time of a certain king to the time of Game of Thrones, there isn't that much time. Like, there were a lot of people who sat on the Iron Throne and they did a genuine good amount of time, several years and decades. However, even looking at our modern history, we look at, for example, Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth reigned for 70 years. There are people who were born and lived and passed away while she was queen. And then if you look at the time between Queen Victoria, who passed away in 1901, and Queen Elizabeth, who began reigning in 1952, that's only 51 years. And in those 51 years, there were 4 kings. 4 kings in 51 years versus 1 queen for 70 years. That is pretty impressive. And it's kind of the same way I look at Game of Thrones. Jaehaerys reigned for so long, and there was so much that happened in his reign. But everyone who came after him, although they did have a significant time reigning, it would never match what he was able to do, not only as a monarch, a father, and a grandfather, but just in general. Like, Jaehaerys was able to accomplish a lot, and no one really after him lived up to the memory and the longevity that he had. So I just think I always tie in like real life experiences and draw it back to everyone gets their stories from somewhere, and I think that's very interesting. Anyways, that's me rambling. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of Vlogmas. Hope you guys have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I will see you at the end of Vlogmas and into 2026. Things coming. Can't wait to share them with you, and I will see you guys in the very next video. Peace out.